Hey, what is up, everybody? It is Cecil Lammey in Miami, and then Sigmund with the Darth Vader purple koosh. I don't know.
Right? Well, it's Chewbacca. I thought we were doing a Chewbacca preview show down here in New Orleans. That's coming up Saturday night. But yeah, there's a pretty big game, and you are in the sunny confines of Miami.
Mhm.
So this is a fantastic weekend, a culmination of things we've been talking about for a year, and then we turn the calendar back over and start over. It's always wonderful. But yeah, anyone coming down to Chewbacca, I'm trying to get Cecil down here one of these years. You're supposed to get a bandolier like
Okay.
Chewbacca, and people
Right.
throw bandolier blocks, and you fill up your bandolier with blocks. So one of these years.
Wow, that's beautiful, man. Is it always the same week?
Yeah, so it ramps up. Next week and is the kind of adult parades down in the quarter, Crew de Vue and Crew Delusion. And then the next weekend after that is when we get into the classic Mardi Gras parades, another weekend. And then, Rex and Zulu on Fat Tuesday. And then St. Patrick's Day is right around the corner if you haven't had enough revelry by that point.
Right. I don't think you can see out my window, but there's palm trees. It is Miami. We are ready for the Super Bowl, and we are ready to see the unstoppable force and the immovable object that is the Chiefs offense versus the 49ers defense. And Bloom, and going back and forth about this game, I want to start with San Francisco's offense because we know it so well. And I don't think they're going to deviate from that. Now, the part of me that's ornery, the rebel inside of me, wants to have Jimmy Garoppolo throw it like 40 times in this game and just come out slinging and come out firing. But I've talked to some people, let's just say in the know, and they're not going to do that with Jimmy Garoppolo. They're not going to put him out there like that. So here we go with San Francisco, and we know Kyle Shanahan in Super Bowl before got a pretty nice lead with Atlanta against New England, but it's going to be running the ball. It's going to be wide zone concepts. It's going to be splitting Kyle Juszczyk out wide. We just know what this team is going to do. Can it work against Spagnuolo's defense, which has been playing better for the Chiefs down the stretch?
Yeah, Cece, I just did a great show with Thomas Emmerich earlier this week. He has a show called Remember That Game. And the game we were remembering was the Steelers' wild card loss to the Joe Montana Chiefs. Very fitting. This is the Joe Montana Bowl. And the thing I liked about it is we really dissected all of the different storylines that intersected at that game. And the storylines that intersect at this game are fantastic. And especially in my mind, this boils down to, in some ways, I don't want to oversimplify it because there's a lot of great players in this game, a lot of great coaches, but it's kind of like Kyle Shanahan versus Patrick Mahomes. Not that the two of them are going to directly square off, but they're the biggest forces in this game. And when we look at the San Francisco side on offense, you're right. Looming over this for Kyle Shanahan, there is a sense of avenging this. And not a lot of the San Francisco players, you do have Richard Sherman, but not a lot of the San Francisco players. Emmanuel Sanders has a ring too. This team hasn't been on a journey through the postseason together, but Kyle Shanahan has that to live with. And you wonder, because the other thing that happened, we look back to last year, Cease, we had a wonderkind in this game in Sean McVay, and he just didn't see it coming, right? He didn't contemplate what Bill Belichick was going to do to thwart what he had been doing. Now, when we look at what Kyle Shanahan's been doing all year, is there a way to thwart what he does? Is there a way to...
Not if they execute it.
No.
If they execute it, then there's really not a way to slow them down.
Right. So Kyle Shanahan doesn't necessarily need to have something up his sleeve, but as you said, some have speculated, and it might make sense, right? Because they're going to gear up, stop the run, to just come out and pass. And they certainly have George Kittle and Emmanuel Sanders and Deebo Samuel and Kendrick Bourne. So it would potentially make sense, but I think when we look at it as a Kyle Shanahan versus Patrick Mahomes game, the best way for Kyle Shanahan to defeat Mahomes in this game is the cliche, but it's cliche because it's true. Keep him on the sidelines. And you do that with the running game. And Kansas City's defense Achilles heel has been the run. And we saw a game they lost to Houston earlier this year where I believe Patrick Mahomes had the ball 3 times in the second half. That's the game plan, I think, for San Francisco in this one. So we are going to see a lot of Raheem Mostert, a lot of great Raheem Mostert stories. Of course, Tyler Dunn, in my mind, one of the superstars of sports writing in the football world right now, did a fantastic fantastic piece on Raheem Mostert. I mean, if he is a Super Bowl hero, he's on the level of, say, James Harrison, where it's a player who has to believe in himself despite numerous messages from the football gods. It's just not going to happen for you. We also heard this week that the Browns released Mostert because he wasn't young enough when he was 24. So maybe when certain analytic, sticking to analytic principles maybe go wrong there, because 24 was still pretty young. So Mostert is going to be in the bullseye here because Tevin Coleman's banged up. Matt Breida's maybe a little fumble problems and just hasn't been, see, in a Super Bowl, how many times has Matt Breida touched the ball since like November? 20 or something? He hasn't been a big part of this offense. I think it's going to focus on Raheem Mostert, but I also think it's going to focus on George Kittle. And, this is an exciting clash too. There's so many layers here. Kittle versus Kelsey, right? I think it was Justice Mosqueda that said, let Kittle and Kelsey cover each other so we can really determine who's the best for once and for all. So he's going to play in there. It's just fantastic. We also have to tip the cap to the offensive line that they put together, and even a small move that might have went unnoticed in the offseason when they picked up Mike Person, who I believe was also part of that Falcons team, played with Shanahan back in Atlanta. And Person was talking about how there really is something to go to continuity and cohesiveness, because now the blocking schemes really work together. The players understand not just their job, but how all the pieces fit together. And on the Kansas City side, we got to remember last year, Chris Jones got hurt in the fourth quarter. Now, he's had some time to hopefully be healthier than he's been during the playoffs, but that's something that you can look at as a piece that led to New England being able to win in overtime in that AFC Championship game. The biggest name on the Kansas City side on defense has to be Tyrann Mathieu, though. And I think it was Steven Ruiz did an excellent piece, charted out everything that Mathieu does on defense. He truly is a positionless player. And that's maybe something that Spagnuolo has up his sleeve. And we have seen this defense get better and better as the season has gone on. So, of course, you got Frank Clark, who CCC, and I talk about this if you want. Frank Clark is coming out and saying things like Derrick Henry's not so hard to tackle. And
right.
That's intentional, right? I mean, it's almost like what Clinton Portis was doing when he was, I can't even remember all the different names for the characters he were. It's almost like to take all the heat, let the media focus on Frank Clark shooting his mouth off, so the rest of the players don't have to worry about that. So he's playing that heel role there. And, I need to take a breath.
I don't know if he's playing the role or if that's just who he is.
Right.
If you go back to his Seattle days and how he ran his mouth there.
It's true. It's convenient. Let's just put it that way. It's convenient for Kansas City that he's doing that. But, I need to take a breath, Cease, because this is exciting. This reminds me, Cease, of some of the Super Bowls we had in the late 80s that we're old enough to remember, when it felt like the clearly two best teams in the playoffs were meeting in the Super Bowl. I don't know the last time that really happened, where the teams in the Super Bowl were so much better than the competition during January. And that's what makes this one so exciting to break down, because it could be a nail biter that goes down to the end, the last possession, but it could also be a blowout either way, because the strengths of these teams are so strong.
It would have been better for Kansas City had they had to go through Baltimore. It would have been.
Well,
you talk about how they've been playing in January, battle tested and all that, and all due respect to Tennessee and the run that they had, but I would feel a lot better from the Chiefs side. And by the way, I'm picking the Chiefs. Spoiler alert. We'll get to our picks at the end of this show. But I would feel a lot better if they were more battle tested, and that's something you didn't get, because we didn't get to see what would probably be a better game than the Super Bowl in Baltimore versus Kansas City. So it's going to take great discipline from this team. And one thing that, needs to be pointed out about the 49ers, Bloom, is everybody loves to block. It's selfless, that entire offense, and the way Shanahan has the buy-in. Emmanuel Sanders, nobody talks about it because, blocking isn't exactly the hottest thing to fill up their airwaves, but Sanders loves to block. And all those guys are very dedicated to doing that. So, Honey Badger can move around and be positionless and be all over the field, but you've got to have 11 guys that maintain their discipline against a team that knows exactly how to hide. They do a good job of hiding receivers that sneak out and run routes. They do a good job of, rubbing routes. They do a good job of just basically setting you up. Of course, it's wide zone. They're going to try to get you out of position. And even the smallest mistake, the smallest error by the Chiefs defense could lead to a big play for the 49ers. The big plays abound for the Chiefs offense.
Right.
This is where, okay, how much of a factor is Nick Bosa in this game? How much of a factor is it when you don't have to send 5 after Pat Mahomes? Because the greatest player on the field, and we can have the discussion like, when's the last time the best team won the Super Bowl? But let's talk about the greatest player on the field. It's Pat Mahomes. So how do the 49ers handle him, and how much of a difference maker can a guy like Nick Bosa be up front?
Yeah, this is, again, all these different storylines, all these different things colliding. You have, you mentioned some of those things about the 49ers offense and George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk. And yeah, George Kittle is probably more valuable to them as a blocker than a receiver, if you can believe that. But you get into things like blocking angles. We get into the old school running game. And it is about blocking angles, Cecil. You're right. It is about getting players out of position more than it's about overwhelming them with numbers in the box. On the Kansas City side, we just got good old quarterback-driven football, right? So on one hand, you have play calls, play designs, play sequencing, because some of these plays are so impossible to defend, as you said, Cecil, if they're executed by the 49ers, because you can do so many things out of the play. You can't sell out against these play calls to take away an option or take away a tactic in the play, because there's always a counterpunch, and there's a counterpunch to that. And whenever you ask the Saints, and that Saints game's important here because it is the game that the 49ers did come back from a couple of scores down to win, and the play calling, and that makes Jimmy Garoppolo feel almost invincible with those plays. What makes the Chiefs feel invincible? Yeah, Patrick Mahomes. This is a quarterback. We talked about Joe Montana in that show I did with Thomas Emmerich. It is a Joe Montana kind of inevitability, right? But as you pointed out, maybe it'd be better for the Chiefs if they hadn't played two teams, speaking of falling behind by multiple scores. They fell behind by 24 points to the Texans, fell behind by 10 points to the Titans, and one going away. They didn't just come back to win. They dusted the competition. Can they do that? Can they answer the bell a little woozy and wake up by the first half end against the 49ers? I don't know. So Patrick Mahomes, but what you have in Patrick Mahomes, and we've chronicled this in the tip of the cap to Matt Waldman. I don't know if Matt Waldman would have said that he was going to get his team to the Super Bowl by year 3, but here we are. He can play within structure. And I think that's what the 49ers are going to do. As you said, they can get pressure with that front four. This is where the investments, even though Solomon Thomas didn't quite work out, but Eric Armstead set up for a big payday here. We got to mention the name Chris Kachurik, the defensive line coach, I believe came from Miami. He's unlocked a lot on this defensive line, Nick Bosa. So that allows them to rush 4 and drop 7 into coverage, much like the Chargers. And I can't remember the name of the writer, it's killing me, that did a wonderful breakdown how the Chargers have really held Patrick Mahomes in check. And they've done it by taking away the middle of the field and playing a lot of cover 3, dropping 7 players into zone coverage. I think that he had broken it down that the Chargers had played zone something like between 88 and 97% of the time, and usually cover 3, which can easily turn into quarters. So you're going to force Patrick Mahomes to kind of take what the defense gives him instead of outlasting the defense, breaking the structure of the defense, and eventually finding Tyreek Hill behind the defense or something like that. Mahomes will still make a few plays like that, but if the 49ers offense does their job, what you give Mahomes 6, 7, maybe 8 possessions, now if you can just get him off of the field 3 or 4 times during the game, things are looking really good for the 49ers in this one. So it is going to be on Mahomes to really carry the team, but he's made it look easy in the postseason. Damian Williams is going to play a big role. So if you're taking what the defense gives you, a lot of times that's going to be Damian Williams. The other thing is, with 2 weeks to prepare, we know that Kyle Shanahan's going to have a lot up his sleeve. What's Andy Reid going to have up his sleeve? I hope Mecole Hardman. I hope a lot of Mecole Hardman. Because there's also been stuff I'm sure you all are hearing about down there with Sammy Watkins. Maybe I'll take a pay cut. Maybe I won't play. He's another big player, though. If you're taking what the defense gives you, it's probably players like that, maybe DeMarcus Robinson. So it's still all going to intersect at Mahomes. He's got the real star power in this game. And really the outcome of this game is probably going to come down to Patrick Mahomes.
Well, you can play it perfectly and he'll still get you.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like, you could do everything you're supposed to do defensively, and Mahomes will still get you. So they're going to do cover 3, middle field close. That's exactly what they're going to do. Bloom, how many chances does Richard Sherman take? Because you brought up Tyrann Mathieu. On the flip side, I started with Nick Bosa for a reason, because getting that pressure will be very important, especially with only 4. But how many chances, how many times will we see Richard Sherman peeking into the backfield, trying to make a play, trying to watch Mahomes' eyes, and then cover 3 beaters are known. Like, they're going to use tail concepts. So I could see a pump fake to Travis Kelce and an over the top to Tyreek Hill. So how does Richard Sherman play? Again, with Super Bowl experience, there's also some things about the moods of these teams that I'll get to in a little bit. And then you mentioned Andy Reid should come out, honestly, and this sounds counterintuitive, he should come out running. The 49ers should come out passing. They won't. Andy Reid should come out running. He won't. So, who's got something up the sleeve? I'd be more concerned about Kyle Shanahan's sleeve than Andy Reid's.
Yeah, I would. And in fact, one of the things I've said frequently over the last couple of weeks talking about this game is that Patrick Mahomes makes Andy Reid irrelevant, which is good news for the Chiefs. I mean, his game management.
Yes.
Because when you think of Andy Reid, the best coach to never win a Super Bowl, it's been game management decisions. And Patrick Mahomes, like he did against the Texans, like he did against the Titans, makes game management decisions unimportant. But I think you're right that we get into anticipation, right? When we think of last year's Super Bowl, it's the lack of anticipation, right? Sean McVay not anticipating that Bill Belichick would change the look after the transmitters turned off so that Jared Goff was on his own. And something that was impossible to anticipate was Josh McDaniels going to the 22 personnel, but running spread out of it in that key drive that was decisive in the game. So we've been talking a lot about anticipating how they come out. And I think that Kyle Shanahan is in that mindset. You also have Robert Saleh. And remember, Robert Saleh and Gus Bradley tight right back to that Seattle line. And I got to mention, by the way, mentioning New England, part of the Chewbacca's thing was the Death Star. The Death Star is blown up. We have a Super Bowl that has nothing to do with the Death Star. We're talking more about Seattle now and that Seattle defense and Seattle defensive ideas, which brings back to Richard Sherman. You see, by the way, that Richard Sherman said he wanted to chase Jim Harbaugh out of the league. It's great. Richard Sherman, like, every interview is fantastic. Now here he is. Wow. How is it that he's playing with the 49ers? He also said that he didn't want to play for the Lions because he didn't want to be in that Patriots style organization. They offered him more money than the 49ers did. But I actually absolutely think that the Niners are going to have anticipation of the plays that are predictable to try to beat what they should predictably do on defense. And that's why I think where the decisive part of this game will happen will be outside of structure for Patrick Mahomes, because as you said, Cease, that intersects back with how you can do everything right and he can beat you. So whatever preparations Andy Reid makes, whatever preparations Robert Saleh makes, it's what Patrick Mahomes can do when the play breaks down, including in the last couple of weeks, Cease, running. What the defense is giving him as a runner. We forget how athletic he is. And again, I mentioned Justice Mosqueda twice in the show now when he said he looks like he's running in a way that he's trying to not spill his beer. Never get that picture out of my head now. The most athletic, least athletic looking guy when he's running. But I think you're right, too, to look at mindsets of these teams. And when you trace it back to Kyle Shanahan versus Patrick Mahomes, they're both so cool. They're both radiating confidence and trust in themselves, trust in each other. And I think that's what's going to make this a game where we may see true transcendence from some of these players: Kelce, Kittle, Hill, Sanders, Samuel, so on, Sherman, Mathieu, Nick Bosa, Frank Clark. True transcendence as the best team will win in a way, and it will be a game where it should truly show how precious a Super Bowl title is, because both of these teams are champions. Both of these teams deserve to be Super Bowl champions, but in the end, there can be only one.
There can be only one. Bloom, I will tell you this. I'm going to set it up like this.
Yeah.
Down here in Miami,
yeah,
of course, hanging out with our guy, Frank Schwab. Sports. There is one team that is super chill and super relaxed. There's one team that is pissed off. Which is which?
The chill and relax team is Kansas City.
You're very correct. Yeah.
They all dress like Andy Reid.
And Kyle Shanahan's guys are pissed off.
Yeah.
Like they're pissed for him.
Yes.
Like they suffered through 28-3. So
yes.
Andy Reid's Super Bowl time is in the past. Philadelphia, Carolina, or excuse me, or Philadelphia, New England. God, there's more New England.
Right.
We're still talking about the Death Star. But okay, so Andy Reid may have forgotten that feeling of Super Bowl disappointment. I damn guarantee you. I almost had a GD bomb there. Sorry, Joe. Yeah. I guarantee you Kyle Shanahan thinks about it on the daily.
Yeah.
So how does that factor in? Before we pick the game, and I've already spoiled it, and I'll tell you why I'm picking Kansas City, but how does that, in your eyes, affect the game? Does it that you're down, I'm here in Miami, one team's like super happy-go-lucky, and one team's super pissed off. Does it mean anything?
Well, I think it does in the sense that how's the game going to start? But if we look at this game and how it starts, I think that chances are the 49ers will get off to a better start than the Chiefs, just because of how the Chiefs have answered the bell in the first two playoff games. And because, as you mentioned, their mindset right now and the San Francisco mindset, and San Francisco's about execution, and Kansas City kind of lets the game come to them. And at that point, so here's where I think it could backfire for San Francisco. If Kansas City comes out, Kansas City wins the toss, Patrick Mahomes and company go right down the field. They overload to stop the run, first down and second down. Jimmy Garoppolo misfires on the first third down, passing down of the game. San Francisco punts it away. Maybe Tyreek Hill breaks a return. Kansas City's up 14-0 now. That's when being pissed off, that's when all that emotional, the force, right? Right? It turns against you. The hate. What's the line? It's going to devour you. The hate, right? The dark side, turning to the dark side to get your motivation.
Hate turns to suffering.
Right.
Anger turns to hate.
Right. And that anger, now when you're behind, now it worked against the Saints. They were able to come back against the Saints. But I think the one place they don't want to be, and Jimmy Garoppolo has been fantastic this year by most accounts. You don't want this game to come down to Jimmy Garoppolo if you're the 49ers. If the game comes down to Jimmy Garoppolo if you're the 49ers, something went wrong. Something went awry. But I don't expect that to happen because the 49ers have come out so sharp. I mean, in either of the 49ers games, was there even a moment that you thought Minnesota or Green Bay had a chance to win? And maybe that's just because they got lucky. And in some ways, the weak NFC North schedule was something they profited from because they went through the NFC North. So neither of these teams, I guess you could say, have been truly tested during the playoffs. This is a really tough game to call. I mean, this is a game, Cease, that if we played this game 100 times, it'd be like maybe 52-48 or 51-49. Mm-hmm. And it's that oblong ball factor. Nobody should gloat if they pick this game correctly unless it's a blowout and they call a blowout, because this is going to be an oblong ball factor game. This is going to be a game, Cease, I think it's going to come down to, and again, there's so many names, right? If you say, tell me a player who could make a play that's one of the greatest plays of his career, like James Harrison, right? Like, tell me somebody who could make a Antonio Holmes, make a play that's one of the greatest plays of his career, and that's the difference in the game. And the list is like 15 or 20 players long. So this is a really tough game to prognosticate, which means it's going to be a fantastic game to watch.
Should be better than last year's Super Bowl. So down here, I'm picking the Chiefs. Over under 54. 52?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's do this. Because I'm picking the Chiefs, that means I'm picking the over. And this one, let's say 35-24. So maybe not as close as we want it to be. And here's the reason why I'm picking the Chiefs. Because my heart wants to pick San Francisco. And in fact, there's part of me that wants to say, like, okay, more physical team. What's Kansas City like when they taste their own blood?
Right.
You can, and don't give me the Bill O'Brien thing. They didn't taste their own blood against the Texans. Bill O'Brien's unhinged. I can't believe what the Texans are doing, giving him all the power. But anyway, that's a side rant. What's it like when they're going to get out physicaled? How do they handle that? It's the Mahomes factor, man. Like the best player on the field is on the Chiefs. And when it comes down to it, put Andy Reid to the side, put his playoff failures to the side, Super Bowl, all that kind of stuff. this is Mahomes' time to shine. And not only because of the story that it's good for the league, because it as obviously is, either one of these teams, but you have new school versus old school Bloom. You've got, motivation, innovation, Texas Tech air raid, and you've got old school Shanahan, run the ball, play great defense. I think new school wins. I think the game is changing enough where new school can. This might be the last stand for old school. And again, my heart says San Francisco, but my head and my official pick is going to be Kansas City. Let's say 35-24.
I wanted to pick Kansas City. I want Kansas City to win. Okay. I mean, this is a Super Bowl for football purists, football fans. You can't really be unhappy with who wins this game. What was it all for? Why do we pay so much attention? What was this all going to culminate in? If it culminates in crowning Shanahan in a season that he was in the hot seat coming in, then that makes sense. If it culminates in crowning Mahomes in a season where the Death Star stopped them at the goal line from the Super Bowl last year, and now, even after, by the way, the Patriots slowed down Patrick Mahomes for a whole half of that game. And this is why your pick and picking Kansas City, you basically saying that Patrick Mahomes is the irresistible force in this game that cannot be stopped. I wanted to pick Kansas City, but see, you know what I keep picturing? How many times in Kansas City games did we see Patrick Mahomes make poor decisions and throw balls that should have been intercepted that were dropped? A lot.
Yeah.
A lot more than you think. Patrick Mahomes has not been a flawless quarterback, but he's gotten a lot of breaks. Does he get those breaks in the Super Bowl? I don't know. I mean, because I do think this team will be not just angry in a way that perhaps is their undoing, but it's focus. It's focus and it's understanding the weight of the stage and how difficult it is to get that far and to create those eternal moments. And I just wonder if in a game against a team, like you said, that's so physical, that has so many ways to beat you on offense, that has so much talent on defense, that has bloodlines on defense that go back to the kinds of defenses that do frustrate Mahomes to an extent. If you can just go in and say it's going to be okay because we have Patrick Mahomes. And I think there will be points in the game that it feels like Patrick Mahomes is just going to steer this game into his win. And, and I mean, I'm thinking back to that Saints 49ers game, and a game perhaps like that game. I just, in the end, I think that there's going to be a point where it feels like Patrick Mahomes is going to do it, and maybe one of those decisions he doesn't get away with is what decides the game. Maybe it's Jimmy Ward or Fred Warner. That's another thing I've got to mention about the 49ers defense. Remember, they've got Fred Warner. Even though they've got Quan Alexander back now.
Right.
They've got linebackers who can run and cover. Damian Williams isn't going to leak out of the backfield for a 40-yard gain on a wheel route. Watch it happen now. But, I mean, based on the personnel, this is, of the 32 NFL defenses, this is one of the more ideal defenses you could put out there to slow down Patrick Mahomes. I think the 49ers are going to win. I think it's like 31-28. I think it's a classic Super Bowl. Maybe it's Jimmy Garoppolo doing his Joe Montana thing in the last seconds. Something happens in the fourth quarter that none of us could have seen coming. But I just wonder if Patrick Mahomes and relying on Patrick Mahomes against a team like the 49ers is going to work out. But really, I just have to say, the winners are all of us to get to see how this plays out.
And get to see a Super Bowl that doesn't involve the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
So,
right. Or Peyton Manning, Roethlisberger, and Brady.
Right.
They had that. I mean, it was Flacco. Flacco was the only one to break that chokehold in the game down here with the power outage last time San Francisco made the Super Bowl. So we'll see if there's some black magic in Miami, maybe.
Voodoo.
Yeah.
It's Miami. There's plenty of stuff
Santeria
going on. By the way, Lightbringer brings it up, and I think we have to talk about it, because if the teams do what they don't normally do, the better team at doing that's San Francisco.
Yeah.
If they have to pass, they could do that better than Kansas City would have to run.
Right.
So
right. Well, and if Kansas City has to rely on their defense and San Francisco has to rely on their defense, again, advantage San Francisco. I mean, it's a game that if you look at it on paper, Cecil, the only way a team like Kansas City can beat a team like San Francisco is a child of destiny, like the one. And well, Patrick Mahomes might be the one.
It might be Neo.
Yeah.
All right. I'm signing off from Miami. I'll make sure not to get into any
Yeah.
trouble so I can actually go to the game on
Yeah.
Sunday.
Go to the VIP club, but not the VIP club inside the VIP club.
Get home early. Get back to the hotel early.
Yeah.
Anyway, have a great time down here in Miami. Sigmund, as always, a joy with these shows. We'll have snorkel, scuba, submarine.
Yeah.
That's coming up probably next week.
Sure.
Give me like a day.
Yeah.
Give me a day to rest up because this is the exhale, right? After the regular season. We certainly appreciate everyone for joining us on all of these shows on our YouTube channel. Like, comment, subscribe, chat room, react. Need you to comment down below too. That helps the algorithm and pushes the show out to people that need to see the Audible. So thank you guys very much. Follow us all on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom, at Cecil Lammey. The show is at the Audible. Everyone, here we go. Super Bowl time. Guns N' Roses tonight. And Snoop Dogg's opening for him, which is unusual, but gonna have some fun in Miami. Gonna watch a great Super Bowl. And we'll be back talking more football with you next week. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We're the Audible. Stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.